And joining us now to talk about the situation in Eastern Europe is Andrew Jenks, professor of history at Cal State Long Beach. Professor, thank you so much for being with us this afternoon.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Professor, we know you are a scholar of Russian history and have written several books about the country. Are you surprised with what's happening in the region right now?
I'm surprised by the level of violence, but I'm not surprised that Putin is seeking at this particular moment regime change. So no, I'm not. The diplomatic options were exhausted a number of weeks ago, and I think the writing was on the wall. It was clear. President Biden had said that there's going to be a full-scale invasion. It just had to wait until after the Olympics were over because that was pretty important to the Russians.
So you're saying you weren't surprised. What led you to say that you're not surprised that this happened?
Putin has had a sense of extreme grievance regarding the situation in Ukraine since 2014, when a Russian sympathetic, supported president was overthrown. And that was in part with the aid of the United States and demonstrations on the streets in 2014. So he's been plotting some way to reverse that outcome ever since 2014, and that includes supporting the breakaway areas in the eastern part of Ukraine, Donetsk and Luhansk, which effectively have been under Russian control for a number of years. And that's a kind of beachhead that he was planning to use. And I think that when Biden came into office, his, I think, desire to embarrass Biden and also combined with the refusal of Biden to promise that Ukraine would not be a part of NATO, all those factors combined to convince Putin that the time was ripe.
And Professor, Russian President Vladimir Putin was threatened with severe sanctions from several countries, but it didn't stop him. First of all, how far can we go with these sanctions and how effective can they be?
Well, the problem with sanctions is that they will hurt us as much as they hurt the Russians. And the Russians, I think, probably have a fairly high capacity to endure the economic pain that sanctions will cause them. And Putin will be able to go to his population and say, your suffering is a result of the West and its inability to recognize our legitimate security concerns. So in a sense, the sanctions may, in fact, paradoxically, strengthen Putin's political position at home.
Has President Putin always been so obsessed with Ukraine, Professor?
The obsession with Ukraine has always been there. And there is a significant portion of the population in Russia that believes that Ukraine is not really a separate country, that it's part of Russia. And I think Putin shares that belief. But something happened, I think, interesting during this COVID pandemic that has hardened Putin's position. Many experts have noticed he's become increasingly isolated, disconnected even from his closest people. I think there's a sense that the emperor has no clothes, that people are afraid, even his closest associates, to tell him to back down from his positions. So I think it's hard to psychoanalyze someone. I'm not a professional psychoanalyst, but I think that there might be this kind of sense of paranoia and isolation that Putin has somehow in an odd way projected onto Ukraine. And maybe that has contributed to this situation.
Professor, President Biden has said that he is not going to be putting boots on the ground there. How does the world move forward from this? What do we do now?
Oh, this is a complete and utter tragedy, and there's absolutely nothing we can do to deter or to stop this unfolding tragedy that we're seeing on our television screens and social media, hour by hour, getting worse. And that's the problem, right? And Putin knows it. We're not going to go to war with Russia. We may fight a kind of proxy war whereby we support the Ukrainian government. If it gets toppled, then we support the rebels that will invariably be fighting against Putin. This is going to be a long, messy, bloody business. Ukraine is a huge country. There are many pro-Russian forces in Ukraine, but particularly in Western Ukraine, there are many anti-Russian forces, and they will be eager to become rebels and to continue the fight, even if and when Putin establishes a puppet government.
All right, thank you, Professor Jenks, so much for being here to talk about this developing story as we continue to watch the situation in both Ukraine and in Russia. We really appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.